Dear friends, welcome to another episode of Geopolitical News. In this video, we will discuss the military agreement between Finland and the United States, which will allow the deployment of American troops to 15 Finnish bases along the border with Russia. On Friday, December 15th, Finland announced that it will sign a bilateral defense cooperation pact with the United States, enabling the deployment of American troops, weapons, and ammunition to 15 military areas in Finland, some of them along the 1,340 kilometers border with Russia. But why did Finland, which recently joined NATO and thus has its defense guaranteed, sign a bilateral defense pact with the United States? The reason for this is quite obvious and goes by the name of Russia. To understand why Finland is so concerned about Russia, we need to quickly look at its past. Until the 16th century, the entire region, despite having its own language and culture, was part of the Swedish Empire. This began to change only in the early 19th century when Finland, already under the direct influence of Russia, sought independence. The development of a unique national identity began, paving the way for the establishment of the Grand Duchy of Finland in 1809, a kind of semi-independent state politically embedded within the Russian Empire. In 1917, during the Bolshevik Revolution and the Russian Civil War, Finland, seizing the chaos, declared its independence. Despite being recognized by the Soviet Union, territorial border issues remained, tendencies that Stalin exploited in November 1939 to declare war on Finland, initiating the Winter War. Faced with the very limited Finnish military capacity, Stalin believed the conflict would be brief. However, victory only came 3 months later, and after Stalin lost nearly 50% of the 760,000 men he sent against Finland. The greatest challenge for the Soviets was the cold. Despite Russians being accustomed to harsh winters, Finland, located much further north, experiences even more rigorous winters. The conditions in the winter of 1939 and 1940 were so harsh that Stalin's over 6,000 vehicles and armored vehicles had little impact on battles due to frequent mechanical failures. Soviet soldiers, known for their winter-ready attire, suffered from inadequate uniforms, resulting in an excessively high number of casualties due to the cold. In June 1941, when Germany invaded the Soviet Union, Finland saw an opportunity to try to reclaim territories forcibly taken by Stalin, thus starting the Continuation War. Despite a promising start with Finns regaining all lost territories, the war took a turn for the worse in 1942, forcing the Finns to sign an armistice with Stalin in September 1944. This armistice gave Stalin even more territories than he had annexed in March 1940 after his victory in the Winter War. However, unlike other countries that fought against Stalin in World War II, Finland managed to remain independent and outside the direct sphere of Soviet influence, thanks to Finnish neutrality. In exchange for Finland not joining NATO and not establishing military alliances with Western countries, the Soviet Union did not directly interfere in the country. This agreement remained intact and active in the 90s after the dissolution of the Soviet Union, with Vladimir Putin promising to uphold it in the early 21st century. However, everything began to change in 2014 when Putin invaded Ukraine and annexed Crimea, while also funding and arming pro-Russian Ukrainian separatist groups in the Donbass region. But the turning point in relations between Finland and Russia came on February 24, 2022, when Putin launched a massive invasion of Ukraine, initiating a terrible war that is far from over. For Finland, the greatest concern was Putin's justifications for invading Ukraine, claiming that Russia was only seeking to correct what he called a historical error by annexing territories that had belonged to Russia in the past. As mentioned earlier, Finland was politically part of the Russian Empire for over 100 years, with Russian intellectuals and propagandists even referring to this fact, using it as an argument to justify the invasion and annexation of Finland, just like Ukraine. In 2022, Finland was not part of any military alliance, and like Ukraine, it had been part of the Russian Empire in the past, posing a risk of Putin using the same argument he used in Ukraine to also invade Finland. All these factors influenced Finland's decision to join NATO. However, as explained in some videos on this channel, NATO is a defensive alliance that can only be effectively activated in the event of external aggression, meaning Finland is indeed protected against external attacks. But this doesn't prevent Russia from provoking and pressuring it, which is exactly what Putin is doing now, sending thousands of refugees from the Middle East and Africa to the Finnish borders. Therefore, knowing Putin's methods well, Finland decided to take an extra precaution, announcing the signing of a defense pact with the United States, foreseeing the permanent deployment of American troops on Finnish soil. Through this measure, Finland ensures that it will have allied military forces ready to intervene immediately in case of need, exponentially increasing the country's defense against Russian aggression. This measure, as you can well imagine, deeply irritates and bothers Vladimir Putin, who will now be forced to accept quietly the deployment of American troops along his long and cold border with Finland. If you are not yet subscribed to the channel, subscribe now to support us, and leave your like. Until next time.